have a company called Photography is Medicine. And I'm just here to listen to what you guys are saying so I can just hear.
Sure, great. You're very welcome. Where are you from?
Well, I'm originally from Philadelphia, but I travel all over to take photos everywhere, and I enjoy it. But my job is just to teach people how to focus and live in a moment using a camera.
And how did you hear about our club?
I was actually introduced to your club through
Delaney, you're breaking up.
I want to have a presentation with you guys.
Delaney, you're breaking up. It's Valerie.
Oh?
I did a workshop with Delaney in Philly, and he will actually be our speaker next month. So
terrific. Great. Well, welcome. Glad to see you.
Yeah.
And hi, Susan Freeman. And there was somebody else, but they left that I didn't recognize. So, okay. Subra, obviously, Vicky knows you.
No, I just pronounced it for you.
Oh.
Subra was a member before.
Ah, okay.
And
yeah, so hi. Yeah, I used to be a member. I was a member for I think a couple of years at least. When I was in the area, I used to live in the Princeton area, and then I moved, out of state and then back. But I'm in North Jersey now, and I just connected back with Greg, and we were chatting, and he said, you are doing the meetings on Zoom now, so I just wanted to see. I love competing, so we'll see if I can, enroll again and compete. Yeah.
Oh, terrific. Great. Well, welcome back. Nice to have you.
I'm originally from Bergen County. Whereabouts in North Jersey are you?
I'm in the Hackensack area now.
Oh, okay. Our church is St. Anthony of Padua on Lodi Street.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Lodi is right next. Yeah.
Yeah, I lived in Bogota for 7 years.
I went to school at
very
St.
familiar with Hackensack area too.
Yeah, that was my grammar school, St. Joseph Bogota.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I lived right down the. I could walk to St. Joe's. Well, in Bogota, you could almost walk to everything. It wasn't that big a place.
Yeah, I lived on Fort Lee Road there for a while. I lived on Third Place.
Ah.
Yeah.
Wow. I was down by the train tracks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You remember the bowling alley that used to be down? There used to be a bowling alley, like a 2-lane bowling alley on at the foot of Fort Lee Road, where it hits what is that, West End or West Shore or something down there?
No, I don't recall that. It might not have been when I was there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got everybody. Oh, another name, Sonali Gopal.
He's a member.
Okay. Hi, Sonali. Nice to have you. All right. Like I said, not a lot of hello. Not a lot of business that we need to cover. I just wanted to let you know, apologize that we haven't gotten a newsletter out recently. Marianne would normally do it, and she's had a lot going on lately. So I'm going to be doing one pretty soon, but I've been pretty busy myself. So apologies that you haven't gotten one, but we will get one out, and it will have stuff in it. Stuff, lots of stuff. Ooh, hey, John, could you come in here? Susie Q just knocked the lamp over. Sorry.
Chicken's going wild up in there.
For me. It's hard for me to get up.
She wanted attention.
Yeah, I think there was a fly inside the shade. Linda, where'd you go? There she is. Linda, can you do treasurer's report for us? And I will get that treasurer's report in the newsletters, but Linda can speak to it verbally.
Okay, let me just go to my little page here. Right now we have $4,231.26. The only fees we've had are for our speaker and judge and the Zoom fee. And we get 13 cents back from PayPal for paying the Zoom fee via PayPal. And we got a $10 donation for pinhole caps from John. So
yeah, it was actually from Valerie's friend of Valerie's who participated in Pinhole Day. So
we are sitting pretty good financially. We're going to have a talk with the head of the library to see about doing our meetings in the new Cranbury library, but she said it's like 18 months. They broke ground the end of last month, and it's an 18-month process to get it built. So we're not going there soon, but we may have another venue that won't charge us, which would help our bottom line.
Yeah, that'd be really excellent location for us. Would make a whole lot of sense. So
yeah,
I'm excited about that. Except we'll have to be excited for 18 months. We'll just have to wait. I'm going to mention Terry and Vicki and myself and Will and Marianne have been working on getting the fundraiser up and running. That we mentioned last time, the apparel items and hats, mug. We're almost ready to roll it out. Vicky's been working really, really hard on getting actually an automated order form, which is incredible. So we wanted to.
If it were working well, it would be incredible.
Yes, well, I have no doubt it will work well eventually. So we're hoping to send that out soon. With instructions and the catalog and the link. And then, of course, Vicki and Terry will talk about it the next meeting, and we'll go over it. But we'll probably get the information out to you before the next meeting. So anyone who's interested, you can go ahead and order away. And again, the club is going to be earning a few dollars on each item. So we're calling it a fundraiser, but it's also a what do you call it? A team spirit event. I hope you're all feel strongly enough about the club that you would like to have some apparel with our name on it, and enjoy that and the opportunity to have that. And some folks have worked, like I said, really hard on getting this going. Terry and Vicki particularly did a really lot of work. So really hoping that it won't be for naught, and that everybody will see their way clear to order something and show your club spirit and help us out with a little bit of a fundraiser.
We don't have pom-poms.
What, Vicki?
We don't have pom-poms.
No, we don't have pom-poms, but we'll have t-shirts. Just to remind you, anyone who would like to go with myself and
Fred.
Thank you, Fred. Next week, thank you. On Wednesday, we're going to Eastern State Penitentiary. There was something that was attached to the email with the information about the meeting tonight. So, you're welcome to come. You do have to purchase a ticket online ahead of time because they have only limited availability. I guess because of COVID, they only let a certain number of people in. But as of this morning, there was space available for next Wednesday. So if you want to come, please get yourself a ticket and contact Fred, and we'll get you going with carpool or if you are so inclined. So that should be fun. Vic, I wanted to let you know that Vicki is going to be our official representative to NIMAC. NIMAC is, tell me again what it stands for, Vicki, I always forget.
New York Metropolitan Area Club Camera Council.
New York Metropolitan Area Camera Council, which we joined over the winter, and it seems to be a great organization. And you've been getting a lot of emails about events because we're invited to anything that their member clubs do. They invite all the other member clubs. So I know a number of you have participated in some really good speaker events. And they also, Vicki goes to meetings once a month, and I know Matt's been going, and I think a couple other people. Tom's been going, great. And it's to brainstorm things to help clubs. So anyone who's on this call is invited at any time. If you're interested in attending, you can let Vicki know, and she can let you know when the meetings are, but I think it's the first Tuesday of each month. No, second Tuesday? Second Tuesday.
It was yesterday, the second Tuesday? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's fine. And Matt, I know you have a couple things. Matt, you're up.
Couple things?
Yeah, well, at least one.
I just have one. I set up a poll. I'm going to enable it now, actually. If you could just fill it out, that'd be great. You should be able to see it now.
Okay. So everybody see that on their on their phone? Okay. If you could just complete that right now.
Now, Matt, Greg's not on. Does that matter?
No, just answer the people that are on.
Yeah, and we're gonna do it again probably next week.
I'm on.
So Matt, I'm seeing the answers. I'm not seeing where I can actually vote.
Because Pat and John are together on there same way, right?
Yeah, I can't see the voting either, so maybe because I made you co-host.
I can click on them, but I can't hit submit.
I don't even have that choice.
I was able to fill
mine submitted.
People are submitting.
Yeah, people are submitting. Maybe because I'm a host too, I can't vote.
Submitted.
I can't submit.
It's just a little slow.
Yeah.
I can't submit.
Rose was able to submit. John was able to submit.
3 questions, so scroll down.
People that are not able to submit, are you on a computer or a tablet?
Computer.
Computer. You know what? There's a third question. I didn't see the third question.
There is 3
Scroll
questions.
down.
If you answer the third question, you can submit.
Oh, I didn't see the third question.
I don't even have it. Well, where'd it go?
Well, you deleted it, you dummy.
No, I didn't. We lost it.
No, you deleted it. You X out the box up there.
Play nice.
You tell them, Valerie.
Play nice.
You're the sergeant at arms here.
I just don't want to see any bloodshed.
Matt, can you send it to me again? I lost it.
Because you X'd it out.
So look, move your mouse to the bottom of your screen and you can turn on and off the poll. It should be right in the middle, wherever your menu is, where you mute and turn off your video.
I'm on the chat screen.
Nope, go back to the screen with all the windows, with all the people.
Yeah, okay.
And move your mouse to the bottom. And right next to the chat option to turn that on and off, it should be a button for polls.
Mine just there. Mine says share screen.
Oh, polls? Okay.
Polls. Yep.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
You got it. Oh, go down.
And there's a third question. Okay.
Keep going. We didn't find that
Oh,
one.
there it is. We love using Zoom. Yeah. Submit. Okay, we're in.
That'll be $5 each.
Take PayPal, Valerie?
Yep, PayPal.
No, we don't do PayPal. No, absolutely not.
All right.
Got everybody, Matt?
Missing 3 people.
I can't vote. I think because I'm a host.
I'm going to put you guys on mute for a minute.
So I'll send you my answers through email, Matt.
What we have to do? We have to mute.
It's supposed to be muted already, dear.
Don't worry, when we get started, we're gonna mute and turn off everybody's camera.
Yeah, if you want to turn your camera off now, that'd be great, because then you'll be able to turn it back on later.
I have something to show.
Yes, Linda, you have something to show.
Okay, the Glenny ribbons arrived. And Tam got 2.
You're gonna have to turn off the giraffe though.
I'm gonna have to turn off my giraffe. Okay, hang on.
Yep.
Well, you can't turn the giraffe off because he's right there next to you.
You got to remember how to do it.
Uh-oh. I just deleted my giraffe, not removed my...
You can add them back.
How do I make it so there's no...
I think you go to video, choose virtual background, and then hit none.
None.
You have to select none.
And if you have a lot of backgrounds, you'll have to scroll up to find it.
There it is.
It'll be at the very top. There you go.
Okay, so Tam's 2 Merit Awards.
Excellent.
For a duck and an invertebrate. And then Sue Fielder's Best in Show.
Very nice.
Yay, Sue.
Still don't believe that.
And it actually has your name on the back of it, so it's there.
It's official?
It's official. So, but it's got a really pretty...
Can't you see your picture? Where
see the NIMAC symbol?
Not really.
Oh. Well, it's pretty. And it's purple.
Okay. So it has to be good purple.
Right.
All right.
Okay. That's all I have to say.
I am guessing that the veterinarian called Debbie, and that's why she's on the telephone right now.
That's why she's scared.
Trying to pull teeth to get to talk to the vet. So that's why she had to jump off and catch that. So,
well, if Valerie could read the bio, then we can let Jean.
I'll have to pull up the bio. I think I just
Matt,
killed your poll. But I do have a screenshot of it.
You don't want us to do them again, right?
Oh, here's Debbie.
Just me?
What are you doing again?
I accidentally killed your poll.
What
Matt?
are you doing again, Vicky?
Vicky is telling you that I accidentally killed the poll, but I have a screenshot of it. So no, you don't have to all do it again.
Oh yeah, no, you don't have to do it again. We're good.
Okay. Yeah, I apologize. That was the vet. Her liver levels, everything looks good. So.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, Debbie, let me mute everybody. I'm going to unmute
Thank you.
Jean,
okay.
We can, you can read her bio.
Thank you.
Actually,
all right.
Yourself.
Jean, first of all, thank you so much for putting up with us with our chatter and taking so long. We appreciate it. We're pretty informal group, as I guess you could see. So Jean has an absolutely amazing resume here. I can't wait to hear you speak to us, Jean, tonight. She is a retired neuroscientist who had a lifelong interest in photography, which became more serious about 10 years ago. Her travels around the world intensified her focus on taking photos of women. She writes, I think what draws me to the female face, young and old, is both a kinship between me and my subject and my desire to share their captured emotions with others, hoping the viewer will feel and identify something they see in each face: pain, strength, determination. Awards for 2 of her photographs in exposure, an annual international jury photography exhibit competition and exhibit in Durango, Colorado, the Open Shutter Gallery, as well as recent solo exhibition, The Female Face, highlighted the portraits of women and children. And I had sent this out when I sent out the meeting, but you could see her photos at www.jeanmerrill.smugmug.com. And I'm not going to read the photographic exhibits and awards, but I will just say that they are extensive. And Jean, if you want to highlight any of them, please feel free. But welcome, and we're looking forward to hearing you tonight. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you. Thank Valerie for the invitation and Matt for helping get me on board with this. Shall I share the screen now? Yes?
Sure, go right ahead.
Yeah, you can share it whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'm going to put myself on mute, Matt.
Excellent. And just to make sure, Jean, we're going to save questions until later, correct?
That would be, yes, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, so if anybody does have questions, just put them in the chat to Valerie or myself, and we'll unmute you later and you can ask them yourself.
Okay. Well, again, thank you for the invitation. I feel somewhat humbled before a camera people, photographers. So this will, in some ways, this will probably be carrying calls to Newcastle. I'll probably skip some slides because they're obvious things that you will know. But I called this talk Finding the Light for several reasons, which will become obvious. There are many ways of thinking about finding the light. And so I've called it My Journey. And so it will be a journey. I'll start off with some of the earliest photographs that I took and lead up to what I hope is my vision. I feel it is. I'm compelled to take certain kinds of photographs, as you'll see. But I thought we should start at the beginning. And at the beginning, since I'm a scientist, I don't think we mentioned that, but I am a scientist. I am a neuroscientist, that was mentioned, but I spent my life doing research. And actually, when I retired 8 years ago, I was a little bit afraid of what I could do. I was interested in photography, but I thought maybe I should dive into it seriously and really understand the use of the camera and uploading my photographs and what to do. I shoot in RAW format. And I can tell you now, the only technical thing I'm probably going to tell you this whole talk is the camera that I'm using. I use a Canon 80D, and I have a 18 to 200 millimeter semi-wide to semi-zoom. And there are many reasons why I have that kind of a camera. I have other lenses, but I don't really use them for a variety of reasons, which will probably come up. It's not a full frame, it's a 1.6 format, and I shoot in RAW. So as a scientist, the technique, the technology, the technical part of photography was of interest to me. And light is an interesting thing that I thought maybe we could spend a couple of slides on, because I think about it a lot as a scientist, as a biologist. It took UV light to trigger the creation of the molecules that created the first ribonucleic acids, which led to life 4 billion years ago. Light is an essential ingredient which is either consumed or produced by most of the important events in biology, chemistry, and physics that allow us to exist. And spiritually, emotionally, light is a metaphor or a symbol for emotions and thoughts. In biology, our light-dark circadian rhythms are critical for the development of our brain, the amalgamation and integration of the details that we take in during our light phase at night while we're asleep. Light catalyzes the synthesis of vitamin D, which is important for calcium uptake and obviously for the growth of the bones. And photosynthesis obviously requires light and provides us with oxygen. The production of light, chemiluminescence, is critical in scientific research and in the medical field. Combustion that leads to fire is important. It creates the light that we use to see after dark. It creates warmth for keeping warm in the cold and for cooking food. And of course, if a chemical reaction results in an explosion, a big one, we can break the bonds of gravity. In physics, of course, light can be converted to energy. And we know from Einstein's work that light can be waves or particles and can bend. And the light from stars and planets, galaxies, helps us understand the origin and evolution of the universe. But as photographers and as human beings, I think the richness of life is because of color. And so the refraction of white light leads us to color. As a metaphor, light can be a symbol of hope, recognition, acceptance, inspiration, discovery, romance. It helps us celebrate things like birthdays, candles on a cake, Christmas, Hanukkah. But for tonight's talk and for this finding the light for me personally, it's a guide to a destination. So I hope that comes through in the process of my telling you a journey, which, because you're photographers, you probably all have already gone on this journey. And I hope it won't be too redundant, but I think using my own photographs to tell you how I learned to do things might be of some interest to you. I had a lot of teachers, first and foremost being my husband, who as a 10-year-old won his first photographic prize. He was living in Tokyo. And it is with him that I have traveled the world. He's taught me everything I know about a camera and what to do once it's in the computer. But we also have taken advantage of opportunities to work with and travel with National Geographic and their photographers. I'll come back to Ed Kashi, who was the first Nat Geo photographer to review my photographs, and tell you a little bit about him later. But the other three, I think the point I'd like to make about being around National Geographic photographers is that there were so many lessons that I learned. First of all, they are among the highest achievers in the photographic universe. Jay Dickman is a Pulitzer Prize winning photographer, and we went with Jay to Tanzania. I should say that National Geographic photographers aren't there to teach you how to use a camera, but they are there to take you to wonderful places that the average tourist will never probably be able to see. And with Jay, we went walking with the Maasai in the Ngorongoro Highlands in Tanzania, shooting them in their bomas. And we also went to an inland salt lake called Lake Ayasi, where we spent a great deal of time with the Hadzabe, who were among the 5 last hunter-gatherers on the planet. And we went hunting with them. They went out, they killed their breakfast, they cooked it, they ate it, and we followed along. And we didn't shoot poison arrows, we shot photographs. Mike Yamashita is Nat Geo's leading photographer in Asia. And Mike took us to the Yunnan province, to a valley called Shangri-La. It's nestled between Sichuan and the Tibetan Autonomous Region. There are 5 major sub-ethnic groups there, among them primarily the Tibetan people. And so there we went and visited lamaseries. Doug and I, my husband and I, had a private interview with a Nat Geo translator with a Tibetan lama, and met his baby brother, his younger brother, 19-year-old lama from the Potala Palace, who is in his 4th reincarnation, and we were blessed by him. And Massimo Bassano took us all over Morocco. We spent 3 days on a camel going to the Erchebi, Western Sahara, lived through a biblical sandstorm, and had tea with Berber shepherds in a cave in the Atlas Mountains. So I learned that each and every one of these photographers has their own vision, and they don't always agree with each other. And that's what helped me come to find my vision. And the third teacher was my camera, a passport and a teacher. And you will see photographs from many of the places that I've listed here that Doug and I went on. These were not trips we took with anybody from National Geographic. Now, all the photographs I show you will tell you where we are, because we're going to jump around the globe for the various examples of the points that I'd like to make. I like Dorothea Lange's statement here that camera is an instrument that teaches people how to see without a camera, because for me, absolutely the truth, because I look at the world differently now. So a few thoughts before we jump into my journey. As you probably also feel, I hope that you looking at my photographs, that those photographs will suggest something beyond what you're looking at. Raise questions, evoke an emotion, stimulate the imagination. Most of all, I hope that the eye lingers, that it moves across the photograph, and that you as the viewer might be interested in returning to look at that photograph for something else that you might have missed. I feel that my photographs should be a product of empathy, trust, honesty, and respect for the subject. And that's not just when I'm photographing a human being, it's when I'm photographing wildlife, it's when I'm photographing nature, it's when I'm photographing an environment that may not be here in the next generation, or whole groups of people whose ethnicity may disappear in a generation or two. I hope that my photographs are unique, that there's something about them that you can experience, not all of them, but some of them, that is original, technically and artistically of good quality. But the most important thing is that sometimes the good photograph escapes you, and it has to be sacrificed, but not for nothing, but for the learning experience. As Annie Leibovitz said, place more on being in the moment and experience and less on the achievement. And photographs go away quickly. That photo op may disappear because you set the camera up on, or somebody walked in front of the target that you were looking at your subject. And I'll show you an example of that too. So, as Jimmy Chin, whom you probably know, won an Academy Award for his documentary on about Mount Everest, said, you probably know him, but he said, photography is an internal and external process of discovery. And so in the next 50 minutes or so, I'll take you on 6 steps of my journey, starting with some of the simplest photographs that I took, where there are no human beings, there's no animal running across the photograph. It's broad daylight, but these were the experiments that I did with my camera to learn how to use my equipment. We all learn rules. I'm not going to probably dwell too much on them, except to show you the examples of some of my early photographs that I used to try to capture the rule of thirds for my composition, the time of day, etc. And then some of the ways that photographers get around some of those rules so that they can go out in the middle of the day in a desert and get something that looks like a decent photograph. And I'll spend the most of the time showing you my environmental portraits. So finding my own vision, which you've already probably gotten a little foreshadowing of, are human beings. And so I'm going to show you some of the earliest photographs I took of my environmental portraits. And for me, an environmental portrait should tell you a little bit about maybe where you are or who the person is or maybe what they do. And then to delve into it with interesting light, ambient light or catch light, to maybe thinking more about what the subject is thinking, if one can do that. So color and texture and geometry, the shaker religion, is very basic and very straightforward and very simple. And so I thought this was a good metaphor for this photograph because these simple colors, orange, red, green, and white, and perpendiculars and verticals, horizontals. And then on the right, the same idea, geometry, architecture, basic colors, little more detail taken from an angle from below. So I used that left-hand side of the yellow panel of this house as my foundation vertical. But I was intrigued by the blue glass. Early on, I learned to play with points of view. So it took the viewer kind of a second or two to figure out what they were looking at. The upper left hand being a hot spring at Yellowstone. So the biosynthetic, the photosynthetic cyanobacteria produce colors. And so this is a close-up in one of those pools. And the lower one being a shot that if you're right under a hot air balloon, you can get. So again, simple, plain colors, but you linger just a minute to try to figure out what you're looking at. I also learned about working the scene, and that if someone says to you, go get a picture of a lighthouse, you can take a photograph like I did in Maine on the left. It's so simple that it almost looks like a paint by numbers painting because there's a little bit of shadow, but not much going on anywhere. But if you hang around the lighthouse and look for something interesting, like I did on the right, I saw in the cylindrical lighthouse, I liked the windows sort of sitting there all alone, but I saw that the shadow on the right, as it went from right to left, revealed that there was texture to the concrete in this particular lighthouse. And also that if you go inside a lighthouse, there are many interesting geometries. So move around and look at things from a different point of view. And water, of course, is just great as either a lens on the left or a mirror on the right. And the photograph on the right, that flag's hanging off the back of a boat. So most of these photographs, as I said, were to just make sure the settings on my camera were right, that I had a nice sharp image, and didn't involve worrying too much about the details when you're working with moving images. So in shooting within the rules, one of the first mistakes I made continuously until I started to pay attention was to have distractions in my photographs. And this is an example. So we're in the Yunnan province. We are with the National Geographic photographer I mentioned. We're in a school, an elementary school, and these children are Tibetan. And we got there in the morning. The school and the kids knew that we were going to be taking photographs, but by lunchtime, they pretty much didn't care about us anymore. So here these children are eating their lunch, and I noticed these two little girls chatting, and I thought, isn't that nice? Took the photograph on the left and went, there's stuff in the background there. There's a little boy, and there's the head of another child behind the girl on the left. So I waited a minute, and that little girl in the background moved, and I took what I thought was a better picture. And the girls that are gossiping here are closer together. There's a more intense conversation going on. And now the little boy in the background, who's looking kind of in their direction, isn't such a distraction because I think of it as he's probably saying, gee, I wonder if they're talking about me. So there I just waited for something to change. Sometimes you need to move. The photograph on the left, now we're in India. I was interested in this woman who was carrying something on her head, but the photograph on the left there was a lot going on there that I didn't like. The man sweeping the street, the gentleman on the right, something in the lower left, and there was a sacred cow in the background. That was kind of interesting, but you couldn't really see it. So in this case, I didn't stand still. I followed her. And the one on the right, those two men are not in the scene. And the sacred cow is a little bit better in the image in the foreground, and the woman, you can sort of see what she's carrying on her head. So this case, I moved. I suppose I could have accomplish this by waiting and using my Zoom, people will say, well, I don't have a Zoom on my camera. And Matt Geo, photographer, would say, yes, you do. It's called your feed. So here I used my feed. And the third example of an interesting background when there wasn't one before is coming back to a place that has possibilities. And here we're on a beach in Zanzibar, which is the part of Tanzania. And these fishing vessels, it's morning and their fishermen are getting ready to go out to fish. I liked the shape of the dhows. And there was a gentleman sitting in the front of one of those boats, but not much else. And so I came back later and the tide had gone out. Now the scene was a little bit more active and interesting. There were more boats. You could see the sky was more interesting. There were some people, although really tiny in the background, out probably digging for mollusks. There was better contrast with the boats in the front, and there were 3 little birds. So what I learned from these background shots were there are various ways of getting something and not being fatalistic about the first shot you take. The other thing in doing portraits that I find pretty much a necessity is having a simpler or simple background. And on the left, what was interesting about this man, and again, I'll reiterate this probably too many times, but I like the photograph to be able to tell you something about the person. And so comparing these 2 photographs, the gentleman on the left is Hindu. I like the fact that the background isn't completely plain, and unfortunately, it actually has colors that are picked up in this magnificent blanket that he's wearing, which is kind of ironic, such a nice blanket, because this man is a beggar. The man on the right was just a few meters up the street. He's Muslim. We know that from his hat. And he is glorious shades of beige and brown, and he's standing in front of not an uncomplicated, but a nice background of purple and orange and red. So having something that's complementary to the subject helps. And sometimes the background can actually add to the story. Here we know we're in a damp, probably warm place, and we are. We're in Hoi An in Vietnam. And the orange mildewy wall tells where we are, and also picks up and helps us focus on that leading line of sidewalk where you can look at the different baskets of fruit. So I don't need to tell this audience about the rule of thirds. I'm going to jump right into it. We're back in the little village where the school was, where the gossiping girls were. And here I have the target or subjects of my interest are in the lower third of this photograph, and the leading line goes obviously from the middle of the left-hand side to the lower right-hand side. So the eye moves across this little parade of people. They're separated, which is something I learned is important when you photograph groups of people. And also we can see they're not all dressed alike, and the women are from the Nashi sub-ethnic group. We know that from their headdress and from their blue aprons. And the gentleman on the far right with the beautiful embroidered tunic and the white hat is Tibetan. So the eye wants to move here and maybe move back and forth and examine each person. This shot, this is at one of the monasteries, the Buddhist religion in this part of Yunnan. These Tibetan monks or lamas are the yellow hat lamas. And first I found this wonderful staircase with the robust lion at the top and the balustrade and this marvelous arch, and there was nobody in the photograph at the time. And I sat at the bottom of the stairs down in the lower right here, waiting, hoping somebody would walk through and come down the staircase, because the leading line would then be beautifully from the upper right to the lower left. And these first 2 young lamas came through, and I took a photograph, and then they got to the bottom steps, and lo and behold, 2 younger lamas in training appeared in the archway. So again, the leading line in rule of thirds here. And here we're in at Angkor Wat. this is a very interesting complex of temples. It was a gray day. There were no shadows. The buildings themselves are gray, covered with mildew and mold. You could have shoot, and I did shoot many photographs here in black and white, but this gentleman caught my eye, and as he walked up the stairs, I was able to capture him in his popping white tunic. So Rudyard Kipling said in Gunga Din, only mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. And that's true for good photographers who know that the midday sun is just bleak for taking interesting photographs. So with the National Geographic, wherever we were, we got up well before sunrise, got out into nature, photographed animals in Tanzania especially. The animals were very, very active before sunrise, as were when we went with the Hadzabe out on their hunt. So get up well before sunrise, don't eat breakfast till maybe 11 o'clock in the morning, then stay in and then go out in the afternoon when the sun is lower. And obviously there can be interesting shadows and reflections if there's water, and there can also be more intensity in colors, saturation of color. So in this photograph, again, a little backstory I will give with many of my photographs. I teach at a girls' school in Tanzania, in the center of Tanzania. But when I arrive there, when we teachers arrive there, we usually spend a day or two on the Indian Ocean. And here we are on the East Coast, it's East Africa, in a town called Bagamoyo. And I got up just after the sun had risen, enough to shine through this sail. Obviously, the fishermen are in silhouette, but it's such a beautiful plain background that what you really focus on there is what is the most beautiful part of the picture. There is the reflection of the sail. We're talking about light, and so I have to tell you this story. Bagamoyo, well, Tanzania in the 1800s was a part of the Omani Empire, and the Sultan made Tanzania, made Tanganyika and Zanzibar his grounds for rounding up people, and he rounded up almost 1 million people and sent them east to the Ottoman Empire and to Persia as slaves. And Bagamoyo was one of those sending off places. And to this day, Tanzanians will not go down to the beach until the sun has come up, and they will not stay on the beach after the sun has set, because it is called a dark place. It's the place from which their ancestors were shipped out to the east as slaves, never to be seen again. Again, we are with National Geographic in Erchebi, and the sun is setting to my right, to our right. I have many pictures with Berbers in the photograph. I just wanted you to see this particular photograph because of the leading line. And I mean, the eye really wants to travel up and then curve to the left. So this is in the late afternoon. Here we are in Rajasthan. My husband and I took this trip a little over a year ago. Well, certainly over a year ago, but a year and a half ago. And I found it one of the most fascinating and photogenically beautiful places. The people are absolutely beautiful. And here we are in Jaisalmer at a Maharaja's pleasure palace. He has built this lake to take his paramours out on little boats to these little pagodas. The sun is set in front of us. The sky is pastel. The lesson I learned about sunsets are, yes, the sky can be beautiful and its reflection in front of you can be beautiful, but turn around and look at the sky behind you when there's a setting sun. And if there's enough light, even after sunset, you can get nice images. So again, we're back with the Maasai, walking with the Maasai warriors in the Ngorongoro Highlands. I'm sure most of you appreciate and know this, that there's nothing better than a cloudy day, especially if the sky is interesting, or rainy day, because colors that might otherwise not be discernible one from the other, as these buildings, all shades of beige and pink and whatever, might in full daylight might not look different. But when there is no sun, there's a great enhancement of color. And so this is an example of that. On a cloudy or rainy day, I'm very happy, because I think the opportunity for getting wonderful deep color is going to be there. Now, Doug and I have spent a lot of time in deserts. The Serengeti might as well be a desert. It's a very dry savanna. The Sahara Desert, the Thar Desert in Rajasthan, close to Pakistan. We've been to Egypt and Jordan, and the midday is just murder, unless you can find yourself a bazaar or a marketplace. And here we are in a souk, a marketplace in Morocco, and it's a special place for men and women who are selling dates to come and sell their wares. And so the nice thing is that the souk, it's a little warren of niches of vendors, but they're covered usually with, if they're not permanent buildings, with palm leaves or with netting. And so here we see, we can even see catchlight in this gentleman's eyes. And there's enough reduction of that glaring sun that we can see the color of his kaftan and his turban. So if you find filtered light in midday. Here we were with Jay Dickman, and this is the warrior that walked with us. We were out looking for wildlife, and we went out at sunrise specifically to take photographs and to specifically take them into the sunrise. Here I'm lying on my stomach so that I get the Maasai's shoulders and head, a little bit of his spear above the horizon. The acacia trees, pretty much just a silhouette, which is fine. It's quite a lovely looking tree. And the idea was to photograph the sky. Now the background, the bottom third of this photograph when I took it, because I had to accommodate the light coming from this sun, was darker, and I used filters. I shoot in RAW. When I went into Lightroom later, I could lighten up the bottom third of this so you could see what was there. Another market in a place where, well, we're in Old Delhi, and there wasn't any sun at all. It was really just smog, and pretty much gray, like the upper little bit of the upper right-hand corner there. But I came upon this scene, which was so warm and inviting and colorful, and the light coming on, showing us the tilak, the third eye of this gentleman who's preparing food to sell for customers who want to have a lunch, is shiny, and the pots are shiny, and you see the warm glow of orange and pink and rust color and coral color and bronze. And this was just a wonderful find. I love markets. I love to photograph markets because usually there'll be surprises, sometimes nice like this one. Another desert in Arizona, one of the most famous canyons, I think, slot canyons, underground canyon that's been formed by millennia of water over the soft sandstone, creating wonderful underground caves. So here, you're not up on the desert, you're down underneath. So you can get pictures in the midday sun. You need the sun actually to get the photographs in these slot canyon, coming down through the crevices in the earth, in this case, refracted light. So I'm going to come back to the issue of getting close to one's subject. And I mentioned Ed Kashi. Ed is a Nat Geo photographer, and he reviewed my portfolio. He was the first National Geographic with whom I had a chance to discuss my work. And he told me that he felt claustrophobic when he looked at my photographs, that I was too close to my subject matter. Well, not all photographers agree with that. Jay Dickman, when we were in Tanzania, said, if you like their feet, photograph their feet. And obviously Robert Capa said, you know, if your pictures aren't interesting, you're not close enough. And so I don't have to tell you all about close-ups, because I think I've seen a few of your pictures now, maybe when we started this meeting. But sometimes objects that are, well, maybe not such an interesting subject matter can be if you get a little closer like this. But again, I like people and I like to get really close. The man on the left, so we're back in Rajasthan now. We're in the Ranthambore Park looking for Bengal tigers. And this man is driving us around, and he just turns his head a little bit, and the catchlight in his eye and the very lovely warm shades, skin tone, and his turban and the background just, you know, begged for a photograph. He has a little bit of a twinkle in his eye and a smile. The young girl on the right is a Maasai. She smelled food cooking. She came to our camp looking for water, and she wanted to barter with us. She had made the jewelry she's wearing, she made herself, and she had more of that jewelry that she wanted to sell us or trade for water. She sat down and probably was hoping that we'd buy something from her, which we did. But she just struck this very reflective pose. And this photograph, I like hands and I like the face, and the scars on her cheeks are beautification scars. So as much to enhance her beauty as her earrings and her other jewelry. And here I'm on my stomach looking through a fence at a rodeo. I really wanted to photograph this horse without a rider because he looked anxious. You can see his nostrils are flared, you can see his teeth, you can see the sweat running down his flank, and there's a cowboy back there yelling at him. So I cut off a lot here. Like I did in the previous picture, I cut off the top of the lady's head, and here I'm cutting off a bunch of things, but I wanted to be close. So now I think it's clear. I love landscapes and I like wild animals, but as Robert Frank said, there's one thing a photograph must contain: the humanity of the moment, and I like people. And this photograph I took, this wonderful looking man, such a beautiful contrast of his skin tone with the cream colored turban and the white of his tunic and scarf. And then there was all this yellow and green in the background, a little busy background, but I was looking at him. And I'm not sure if he was giving me the okay sign, but we found men and women alike in Rajasthan not only were very willing to have their photograph taken, they enjoyed it. So I took this gentleman's photograph, and then I noticed there was somebody else in the photograph there. So here was a case where I didn't look at the background too carefully, because then I noticed there was a smiling woman sitting in the tuk-tuk. Through her veil, you can see her bindi, the little jewel between her eyebrows. So lots of green and yellow, but a discovery. Here we are in Brittany. And we know that, well, we do if we did some homework, which we did. Because of these beautiful starched linen caps, I liked what I saw when I took the photograph, but I discovered something after I took the photograph, which is the girl on the right. You can see more than her mouth and her ear. You can see her eye through the hat of the young lady whose back is toward us. And so this photograph, I felt, was interesting because you really couldn't see all of you couldn't see any or all, the entire faces of the other three young ladies. Here we know we're probably in Vietnam because the non la, the hat that the Vietnamese wear, almost everybody. This young lady, we're on a boat in the Mekong Delta in Can Tho in a floating market, and we're on a boat, the boat is moving and her hair is moving. And that's what caught my attention for this photograph. We can tell some important things from this very simple photograph of this young lady. We know she's Hindu. We know that from her jewelry. We know she's married. We know that from her jewelry. She's wearing the Mangal Sutra necklace with the holy thread. And this is a sign of mutual love and commitment in her marriage. All married women wear a black necklace. She's wearing a bindi between her eyebrows, and she's wearing a nose piercing and an ear piercing, although they're quite modest. And her Mangal Sutra is not made of precious stones. It looks to be woven. So I think we know that she's also not a woman who's very wealthy or of means. We also know that her husband is alive because in the Hindu religion, if the husband dies, the wife can no longer wear any of this jewelry, and she must dress in white. These young ladies are sisters. They were having their picture taken at the Mehrangarh Fort in Jodhpur, and they saw me with a camera, and they said, "Would you take our picture?" And I said, "Yes, of course." So I moved them in front of a wall for this environmental portrait. I moved them in front of a wall that would likely tell us we are in India. We can tell other things about being in this part of India. In Rajasthan, the women wear earrings. The girl on the right is wearing earrings that are very, very typical of Rajasthan. But what I found interesting was the two girls said to me, "We don't have to look at you, do we?" And I said, "No, you don't." And so they posed as they're doing now. And the young lady on the left raised her hand, and she's got a tattoo on her hand. And I think this is a Mehendi tattoo. It's for good luck for young ladies who are getting married. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it is. And then the story behind this is an example of an environmental portrait that I didn't think was a wonderful portrait, but it was an experience that I will never forget. And so that's the point I was making about sometimes you sacrifice the absolute best photograph for the experience. This 96-year-old woman, with whom I could communicate because one of my fellow photographers spoke Chinese, had not seen she'd never seen an American, but she'd not seen a Western person face for 70 years. We are in a place in the Yunnan province where in the 1800s, Swiss and French priests came with honey rose grapes for their communion wine, and they built a church, a Catholic church. This valley is Catholic, in spite of the fact that it is primarily Nashi and Tibetan, and Buddhism is the main religion. But this particular area, so this lady is Catholic, and she told us that the reason she hadn't seen anyone in 70 years from the West, mainly Europe, was because in the 1950s, the Communist Party forbade any religion and sent all of the Western priests away. And today the church is run by Tibetan. The service is in Tibetan language. The Bible is in Tibetan. But this lady was such an interesting person, and I will never forget this encounter. So now I'd like to concentrate on how I found my vision by finding the light. And also how it relates to portraits. Paul Caponegro said it's one thing to take a picture of what a person looks like, and it's another to make a portrait of who they are. And here we know who this man is. He is an artist. He is a Nishi potter who takes clay from the Nishi Mountains and fires it on a pine fire to make black pottery, which is a tradition that's 2,000 years old. The light is ambient light. It's coming in through a window. And it illuminates part of his face, which shows a man who's focused and yet relaxed to a certain degree. But his hands are the hands of a dancer almost. They look quite relaxed. So he must be doing something that's quite delicate. ambient light here is coming through an opaque, opacified window. Doesn't have clear pane, so it's a soft light. I took this at the Mogolole Orphanage in the town where I teach. I teach at a secondary school for girls. This is not a mother and a child. This is a nun, a Catholic nun, because the orphanage is run by the Catholic Church. And this child will be in this orphanage till he is in his teenage years and can go out and earn a living and take care of himself, because Tanzania no longer allows for adoption. And I thought that the redundancy in their profile and the catchlight in their eyes was very, very interesting. This young lady is probably in her teenage years. Her name is Naita, and she is the 5th and youngest wife of the chief, Maasai chief of 200,000 Maasai people. So she is probably considered a princess. We are in her hut, which is pitch black. And I'm standing in the pitch black, and she is about to walk through the door out into the sunlight. So what do I see in her face? I see that she has so far lived an uncomplicated life. I see self-confidence. I see serenity. The last few photographs are, again, environmental portraits, and the catchlight is important. If any of you know, in the 40s, Merrill, a famous actress, had beautiful eyes, and the cameraman actually made some little strobes they eventually called them Obies, because after Merrill Oberon, to get the reflection in her eyes, because there was so much emotion. So I'll show you a few of the pictures where I've deliberately chosen them for catchlight. Again, this is an environmental portrait. We can guess that we're in Morocco from the carving of the door and the mosaics, the tiles behind this man, and that he's Berber. He's wearing a blue kaftan and a very elegant, colorful turban. I don't know much about this man. I can't tell much, except that I believe he's probably Muslim, but it's that haunting look in his eyes. When I look in the eyes of this man, I see pure benevolence. He's Sikh. He works at the Bangla Sahib Temple kitchen in the Sikh temple in Old Delhi. He stands on a ladder over a cauldron that's the size of a small automobile, with a big paddle, like a huge oar, stirring lentils and rice, because it is part of the Sikh religion to take care of those who cannot take care of themselves, to feed them. And this temple kitchen feeds 45,000 people a day. He is gesturing to me with the honorific namaste. The light is coming from his right, so ambient light, and look at those eyes. Of course, I gesture back, namaste. To me, namaste was please, thank you, hello, goodbye. Here we see desperation, maybe, pleading. This lady is a gypsy. You see, she isn't wearing shoes. She's selling trinkets. She wants me to buy something. And it's that forward leaning and that look in her eyes. It was so captivating. I did buy something from her. This woman is Tibetan. She is the mother of one of our guides and translators while we were in the Tibetan region in Yunnan. We were in her kitchen. She has invited us photographers in for lunch, and the light is coming through in a Tibetan kitchen. The stove is in the middle, and there's a big opening in the roof so the smoke can go out. And so she's being lit from above, and still you can see the catchlight in her eyes. I've caught her in a sort of moment of reflection, not to use the pun there, I suppose, but her skin looks shiny and smooth because of the high altitude, the The UV rays are very harsh on the skin, so her skin is probably quite leathery. She works out in the open, so the coldness and the altitude have taken the toll on her skin. This woman can't be more than maybe 40 years old. Her eyes travel with me when I look at this picture wherever I am. Again, this gentleman is getting about as small as he can get and all bundled up. I don't know why he's got a scarf to hold on his turban, but the look in his eyes, the depth of emotion and life and feeling that I see in those eyes were just mesmerizing. This is my last photograph. This and the photograph of the Maasai wife have won awards. This is back in the school where we started with the two little girls gossiping. And this young lady looks up for a moment from her homework, and the light from a window is caught in her eyes. Her skin also looks smooth and shiny and red, again from the weather. So for me, photography helped me find the light about what I could do in my retirement. I feel like traveling with a purpose in my retirement with my husband. We do our homework before we go. We learn something. We learn to say a few words in a language, or if we can speak the language of the people, as we could in Morocco, we could speak French. We want to engage the people that we meet because there's a story behind every photograph. So we learn about the culture, we learn about the religion, we learn about the etiquette, we learn about the environment, we learn about the history. And the idea of traveling with a purpose is, well, it's to capture people and places, even if it's just to share with our own family members that may not be around in a generation or more. I also travel with purpose when I go to teach at a high school in Tanzania. Photography has helped me become more knowledgeable and artistically more creative. And I use both sides of my brain. I'm a neuroscientist, so I like to think of the left side of my brain, which is where the detailed and analytical and interpretive and logic happens, as the local subway. There's a lot of input, there are a lot of stops, there's a lot of amalgamation and integration and consolidation, and it's probably what helps me use a camera and then do the post-production in the computer from my raw data. But the right side is the express subway, because it's the big picture. It allows me to draw on all of the details that I've accumulated on the left side of my brain and be creative and intuitive and solve problems and maybe come up with an instantaneous, yes, this is the right shot, and maybe with composition that I like. So thank you. Thank you for listening to my journey. I'm sure some of it was redundant and information that you've heard, but I hope that the examples that I gave you from how I learned to be a better photographer through my own photographs was useful. And again, I have a site where you can look at the different galleries if you're interested. And again, thank you, Valerie and Matt. So I'm done. Should I stop sharing?
Hi, Jane, that was great. I'm waiting for Debbie to come off mute too. You can keep it up in case there's a question about a specific
okay.
Picture. I see Lynn. Lynn, do you want to come off mute and ask your question, or in Padway? All right, maybe not. She was asking whether or not you do any processing on your images.
Yeah, let me explain. I'll give you a little bit of background and then come to answer the question. On these trips that my husband and I take, more often than not, I take between 2,000 and 4,000 photographs if it's a 2-week trip. I don't edit in the camera because these are raw, and a small tweak of exposure might rescue a picture that I wouldn't otherwise have known by looking at the back of my camera. I don't edit in the camera, so we take lots and lots of chips. When I get home, I upload them into the computer and triage. I can quickly see if I've taken a variety of photographs of a scene. I can quickly triage down to maybe 1 or 2 that look like they're probably the ones I want to carefully look at. So I could triage 4,000 down to maybe 200 pretty quickly. And then I go in and use filters on the raw data to adjust for exposure, mostly color saturation and sometimes focus, but not often, to be able to really see whether I do have a photograph that I like, so that I can get them down in the end from a trip of 4,000 photographs to 40 or so, 40 or 50. So the processing I'm doing is merely applying filters to the raw data. I don't shoot in JPEG because it's compressed, and I always want the original to go back to. If sometime at a later date I want to go back and say to myself, gee, I'm really not happy with the way, you know, I fixed this the first time, that I can go back to the original photograph. So when you say process, yes, I have to, because they're shot, it's just data in the camera.
It looks though, Jean, to my eye, that you do a minimal amount of processing. Your photos seem to speak for themselves. You need very little processing.
Right. I think, you know, one of the things, as I say, the lessons I learned where I made mistakes early on, I try not to make. I'm very careful now when I'm taking portraits. If you want, I can tell you a little bit about taking portraits. I always learn to say please and thank you. You know, you hold a camera up to someone and they'll either go like this or they'll shake their head, and then that's that. It doesn't mean I walk away though. We've had many occasions when we've stopped and talked with people, either through an interpreter or because we spoke English or we spoke their language. I can speak some Kiswahili now that I've been in Tanzania so much. But if someone agrees to have their photograph taken, I usually don't keep the photograph that I take the very first shot of. I show it to them, but then I engage them because they're more likely, I think subjects get bored more quickly than the photographer does, and they start to go about their business as if we weren't there. And then sometimes you can take a photograph that really tells you who the person is. So yeah, I'm careful about background. I'm careful about a lot of things. If anything that I have to adjust more often than not, sometimes it's exposure, because if there's light and dark, you know, you either shoot the important part and but you make sure that you've got all the data so that if you have to go back and lighten something like I did in the Tanzania shot where we were looking into the sun, then you can.
What do you think is the most photogenic place you've traveled to? Do you have a favorite?
Mm-hmm. I would have to say Rajasthan. I was a little skeptical about going to India. I don't like spicy food. You know, I was worried about a lot of things, but, and also we had been in many, many Muslim countries, and I know that men will sometimes allow you to take their photograph, but women will not. In Rajasthan, as I mentioned, people were very kind and very willing to have their photograph taken. The men, in fact, were very proud, and they'd adjust their turban and kind of, you know, twizzle their mustaches out and, you know, do a proud thing, you know. The women, I like to take their photograph with the married women would have a veiled face, and they would lift their veil because they wanted me to see their face, and I'd say, no, You can leave the veil down, it's okay. So very polite, very warm. And the beauty of the colors, the women wear pinks and oranges and yellows, and the men wear bright red turbans. And it was just an engaging experience. And the architecture and the scenery, everything about it was fascinating for me in photography. And I would say, as far as interest in a country, Morocco, I would go back to again and again, because there were so many different versions of Morocco, depending on whether you were in a city or in the desert. I think Morocco is also very, I like the feeling of being in a place where there still remains evidence of a culture that's been there for several hundred years, and it's changing so fast in many places. That's why being in that part of China, in Yunnan province, where there were still people living the way they had lived for many, many years, centuries, was important for us to go and see that before the ethnic cleansing that's happening in the ethnic subgroup in China completed.
What's it like to travel with National Geographic? I know it's a, you know, the rather expensive tours from what I've noticed. And
they've gotten more expensive, and that's why we haven't done more. When we started, they weren't as expensive, but Nat Geo was bought by Rupert Murdoch and has become a money-making enterprise now. And the Nat Geo photographers say they don't have the travel expenses that they used to have, and very rigid for them, not so much fun. Well, what's interesting is that all of these photographers are characters. And as I said, they all have their own vision. And I learned something from all of them, but most of all, I learned that there's no one way to take a photograph, and maybe not even a right way to take a photograph. There's your way. But they all have wonderful stories. They all shared their experiences, and because they had been in the places we went to with them, they knew the people, they knew special little things that they could get us into. I mean, that, you know, that we would never have gotten into. We went into the Catholic Church on Palm Sunday in that valley, the little old lady. Now they didn't have palm fronds, but they had juniper fronds. The service was all in Tibetan, but I'm in the Church of England, so I knew when they, you know, I knew the parts of the church service. So there were just things. I mean, having an interview with a lama who'd never seen anybody from the West, and be introduced to his brother, who's in his fourth reincarnation, and be blessed by him. I don't know. There were just things that we did that were memorable in Nat Geo that we would never have had the chance to do.
So I have a couple questions and no one else does. So you were saying that you ask people, you know, just by a nod, you know, if you can take their picture. When there's a group of you walking around taking pictures, do you find it more difficult to get that image, or do you guys split up? Or
oh yeah, oh yes, oh yes, we split up. You know, I'll tell you something about photographing women. If a man with a camera asks to take a picture of a woman, they'll say no. But if a woman asks to take a picture, another thing I didn't mention, many times women would say yes. I also brought with me a Fujica, Instamatic Fujica with a Polaroid readout, those little tiny photographs. So before I even used my big camera, especially with kids and sometimes with women, I would take a picture and give it to them as a gift. So they had something from me, and I say, could I take another picture? And then I would use my big camera. But I found that women, so I learned how to say, for instance, in Kiswahili, Nzuri sana, which means showing her the picture of her and saying to her, very pretty, very lovely. And if you learn a few words and you engage them, I mean, in Morocco, it was heaven because we could speak French even with the kids. And so, you know, they want to know who you are, where you're from, and you want to know how old they are and what they like in school. And then pretty soon they're relaxed. And so, yeah, so.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you've ever sent them a picture, but that's smart to take an instant
Giving
one.
it to them right away.
Yeah.
I learned from teaching at a girls' school. You know, bring lots of the film and give every girl a photograph, and you know, so we just learned that it was just a nice thing to do, and we don't want to make. Nat Geo is very strict about when we would go into a community where the community knew this is National Geographic, and they would tell us, do not give anybody money. The chief of the tribe or the chief of the village or whatever has been given money so that they can, you know, get necessities and things because we're there and they're doing us a favor, but don't give anyone and don't trade things. So we don't want to make beggars of the people we're interacting with. And so we, you know, there are other ways around it. And one of them, I think, is giving them a gift of something that they can have right in their hand.
Nice. I was going to ask about the money if you ever paid for it, but the woman who had you said was a beggar and she had something. So did you purchase something before you took her picture or after?
I told her I would. I told her I would, and I did.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, it was the amount. It was the amount of money I might have given her if she hadn't given me something in return. But
yeah, nice trade-off.
Yeah.
Okay. Joe wants to ask a question. Are you off mute now, Joe?
Yeah, I'm off mute.
There we go.
I mean, with the travels, I mean, it's sort of like, I've done a fair amount. I've done some traveling. And sometimes when you're traveling, like say like in Europe and you catch festivals or something going on, like being at Holy Week in Rome, in the Trastevere area, they do a procession through the streets. And it's great to photograph something like that. You know, you're there, you're actually inside of it, you're living it. That's the one thing I find interesting about. And, you know, you're traveling and, you know, I've come up on another one in Hungary where there's a fest, you know, like they're all dressed in their costumes and all like that. So it's just, you know, hearing what you're saying, you're there, you catch a moment and you're seeing something that happened, you know, that's been probably going on for hundreds of years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it adds to the experience that you're actually when you're traveling.
Right. When we were in Lima, our last trip was a year ago, and we got COVID on the Amazon River.
Huh.
But we were in Lima, Peru, beforehand, and there was a procession for the Virgin Mary, and magnificent statue of the Virgin Mary, and gentlemen carrying this gigantic statue on their shoulders to a bugle and drum beat, you know, into the church. But just to be among the it was just, you know, like you say, there's nothing that can replace seeing something that you were just happened to be lucky that day that there they were. So I know what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's things like, you know, I mean, I've traveled to, like, you know, sometimes you go down, you know, you see things like you go to South Carolina, like in South Carolina, you have actually the gullah who are doing the you know, the weaving of the baskets and all like this. Mm-hmm. And you just take a picture of their hands.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's actually one of those things that you look at and you go, or you go to one of the things, they're reenacting some things where they're doing some weaving or they're doing something else. You know, I mean, I've been in, you know, or in like Toledo, there was they make these plates where they pound the gold and silver in. You actually you can actually take pictures of the craftsmen doing it. Mm-hmm. And it sort of makes, you know, it sort of adds something that says, gee, you buy one of them and you look at it and go, you've seen it made, you know what goes into it. Makes, you know, and that's what I said, it's a memory that you have going forward.
Yes, indeed.
I've also had one shot where I saw, you know, I was in Italy, and there's this couple that I saw, just this quintessential, what I thought were the most, you know, if you're in Italy, this is the couple that would be a nice old Italian couple sitting down to have their coffee on a thing. Took a pic, you know, I just sort of picked the camera up and did it, you know, got a couple shots of it, but I loved it because I got caught and the woman stuck her tongue out at me, and I love it because of that. It just was one of those things that you do that. But I would like to have gone, you know, it was one of those things where I was doing something else. I just kept going, but it was like, I really wanted to let her know that I thought I loved the way they looked, but I have to remember that the next time I run into that.
Okay, John Aniano has a question.
Yeah, Jean, a question. Our next competition is abstracts. Do you ever do abstracts? In all the photos you showed us, not many would have been considered abstract. Do you ever go in that direction?
Sure, absolutely. I also like architecture. So yes, I do. The answer is yes, I do. If you go on my website, you'll see lots of things other than the pictures of photographs of people. I like a landscape, but do you know who Joel Sartori is?
Oh,
yeah. So Joel said to me once, you know, look at this. He said, this is a great landscape, but wouldn't we like a person with a red umbrella down there? So I really like landscapes, but I like people in them. You know, I would love for somebody to walk through that, you know, gate now, like I showed you that one. But yes, I do take pictures of buildings and close-ups of moss and whatever. Yes.
Okay.
I didn't use them today as an example because the theme was light, and I just decided I would focus on that which I am attracted to most.
Well, your Yellowstone one would have come close.
Yeah.
The one there you would have had, that would have been close to the, where you were doing the Yellowstone thing would have been a close one that you would have shown today that I would consider having an abstract quality.
And I have another random side note. So when you're out there and you see people cooking and selling fruits and things, do you ever eat anything on the street?
No. When we went out with the Hadzabe, they shot a baboon. They used poison-tipped arrows. So there are five remaining groups of hunter-gatherers left. They speak a language that's considered to be one of the earliest, if not the earliest language, the clicking language. And they went out to shoot breakfast. They shot a baboon in a tree, but the baboon was smart and he clung to a limb of this palm tree and he didn't come down. So they cut the tree down. So this is like time has passed and the poison's now like, you know, somewhere else in his body. But they throw this thing, fur and all, onto the fire and cook it, sort of. And then they offer it to us as guests. And they offer it to the oldest people. So, you know, no thanks, but, you know, thank you for the offer, but no thank you. They ate it. Oh my God. So no, I never drink juice or eat fruits from vendors. In fact, in Tanzania, when we were out in Ngorongoro Highlands and camping, our Maasai drivers and cook we had to wash our hands in dilute Clorox, and they washed everything we ate in very, very dilute bleach, even though they had taken care to purchase it, you know, and prepare it carefully, but we were very careful about what we ate.
Yeah, I had a cousin who probably would have eaten the baboon. And he did go on one of their safari tours, he did eat something that they offered and he did get really sick. His wife was fine, but he got sick. So I'm always leery.
Yeah, you know, the Maasai are pastoral. They herd cattle for the most part and goats. They don't eat anything planted. They eat the meat of the animal. They drink the blood and the milk. They eat the organs. And so we went to a Maasai camp where they were training young Maasai to become warriors. And that meant learning lots of things. And they cooked the insides of some animal. I guess it was a cow. And they offered that to us to eat. And, I mean, some people did sample the liver and the heart and all that, but no, not for me.
Did they get upset if you say no?
What?
Did they get upset if you say no?
No, we had someone translate that. We thank you very much, but we're old folks and we have, you know, dietary restrictions.
Does anybody else have any other questions? I know we have to take you off mute if you do. Well, we got a lot of feedback, and I'm not sure if you've seen it in chat, Jean. Some things were sent just to me, but some things were sent to everybody. So they appreciate everything that you did. They loved your images.
Thank you. It was a little daunting to come before an audience, people that know what they're doing.
We can learn from everybody. We're a very open group, and we have from beginners up to experts, and we learn something from everybody who comes and speaks to us. So I think we've all picked up some good tips. At least I know I have.
I love looking at other people's photographs. So thank you all. Thank you for attending, and thank you, Valerie, again.
Yeah, I'm glad I stumbled upon you on the pier. And feel free to join us either just to sit on our competitions if you like, or to come back and hear another speaker. Like I said, Delaney, he had to drop off. He said that your images were great, but he's going to be speaking next month. So,
well, if I'm on your email list, yes, please let me know. I mean, if I need to join as a member, I can do that too. But I would like to see more of your group's work.
So we allow anybody to join us. We just say if you want to participate in the competition, then you have to become a member. Otherwise, you just have to watch and see what everybody else submits. But we always welcome new members. Not to say you can't or shouldn't become a member. I just want to say it's not required. But we're always looking for new people to join us and step up our game in terms of competition. When there's a new kid on the block, everybody's like, ooh, I got to do a little bit better. Right, everybody?
Well, thanks again.
Well, thank you. Debbie, do you want to come off and mute and close us out?
Thanks, Valerie. Yeah, thank you so much, Jean. I know I really, really enjoyed your presentation. I particularly love that photo of the nun and the baby. I just think that was absolutely amazing, and the one of the gypsy, just amazing. Great work.
Thank you.
You should not feel the least bit daunted by speaking to other photographers. You're absolutely right up there with the best of them.
Thank you.
All right, so everybody's saying lovely. Matt said you can unmute yourselves if you like. So Jean, now is when we just randomly talk. So I don't know if anybody has any other questions or if you want to stay on.
I think I'll say good night. I think I'll say good night to everybody, and again, thank you for being there.
Good night, Jean.
Bye.
Thank you, Jean,
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you. Namaste.
Bye.
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 Thank you.